different.
Right.
You've got a motion to delay this, so you got a motion and a second. If there are no other comments on this, Chris?
I just wanted to say that George's last request was ignored. I brought it to the chair, and that was what put it on the agenda.
No, and again, I'm not saying, I don't mean to imply that anything was ignored. I haven't seen anything back. And that's the only reason why I'm asking for the board to.
That was my fault for not responding once it was on the agenda.
It's okay. All right.
Yeah,
So that's the argument that Mr. Adams has for this. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of, wait, before we.
Discussion?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I guess I'm confused as to why we would delay this. This is something that emails have gone back and forth, there's talk in the town. I think I think this needs to be addressed, and we keep kicking it down the road, let's just discuss it.
I agree, and I agree with you on that. I don't want to kick the can down the road either. But the point is, in an executive session, I'm not prepared to ask the questions that I need to ask of this employee because I was unaware that this is what this was. Okay, and again, we're not receiving any communication back, and I think all the board members, any issues we've had since the initial request for an executive session, which I think was the end of January. So I agree with this. This can has been just delayed all along, and it shouldn't have been. So if we can table it to the next meeting, I think that's fair to the employee. I think it's fair for us, at least for myself, so I can, because I'm not prepared for that. That's not what's on this agenda.
George, you keep saying you're prepared, but this letter says, specifically Anthony.
This letter, no, no, go ahead, Anthony, speak.
Did you hear what I said? Did you hear what I said?
I don't know.
I had said, I am not prepared, and I respectfully thank you for your time. I'm not prepared this evening to move this forward. And I respectfully, my peers, if there's something that's to be tabled, and I'm asking respectfully for my peers to respect that. I'm not prepared.
If that's what the board wants to do, that's fine, because we'll vote on it, and if the board votes to delay it, we'll delay it a week, and that's fine. I just have to say that, this has been around for at least 2 months now, so I don't understand. And I personally would have thought that if you are requesting to talk to somebody, that you have reasons for that documentation, so I don't understand why we're not ready to go. But, okay, we have said all of that, so let's do this. All in favor of delaying this a week? Oh, I'm sorry, you did, I beg your pardon. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out what's changed since the original request. Because nothing has changed since the original request. We're still in violation of both zoning and building codes, plural. So nothing has changed. I'm not sure, understand why he thinks he needs more time to prepare when he should have been prepared when he first asked for the review. That's my take on it. And continue to kick this down the road. People are watching this, and they want to see that things are done correctly, and they're not, because I am not the type of inspector that wants to hammer people with fees and fines. So, but we get to the point where I have to do that now in order to hold up the integrity of the office in the town. So that's my case.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're ready to go to a vote. Okay, we have a motion to delay it a week. You didn't say that, but I presume a week is what you're looking for.
The next board meeting.
Next board meeting will be fine.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I meant to say the next meeting, yeah. Okay, so all in favor of pushing this off to the next meeting?
Adams, aye.
So do I.
Or no.
Randall, no.
Okay, we're going to talk about this because I'm voting no.
All right, so I've been advised by council not to be present while this is being spoken about. Okay.
When we do that,
So if, just for the record, since we're all watching what's going on here, if this is clearly an executive session, is what you're stating,
No, I'm not.
then when is the executive session going to happen?
It's not.
You
It has
waited.
not to happen.
An executive session in the past has been either in private or public. If he's requesting it to be in public, it's still an executive session. It's still, he waives his right, I guess.
He waives his right to
raise
an
his right.
executive session where it's behind closed doors.
Behind closed doors, so it's in public, which is fine.
He did that 2 months
Okay.
ago.
This is fine. So, again, so all the board members understand, not a single one of us received any information about this. That's what I'm saying. And I know you already voted carry, but I want the residents to understand something. When we had an executive session for the building commissioner, was it 2 years ago? Right, year and a half ago? 2 years ago. At that executive session, Martin Kelly accused himself from that session because of his relationship, with the field owner and stuff. He did not sit in that executive session. You left the room.
I did.
Okay? Mr. Vandal, okay, in his business relationships, has to work with Mr. Cantel. And Mr. Cantel is an inspector for other communities, and there's a conflict of interest there. So Mr. Vandal should not be voting on this issue.
Nor should Mr. Soto.
Right. Now, the issue is, correct, Mr. Soto has some issues, which has a personal nature, which is not what all this is about, okay? And my point is, if we were to do this the right way, the only two that should be discussing it would be you and I.
I disagree with you. I don't think you should be voting on it either.
And why would that be?
Wasn't there something, a file, Cantel filed with the Board of Registers?
Right.
So that was a complaint.
That's his choice. That has nothing to do with this.
I disagree.
Okay, and again, yeah. So in other words, when an employee files, we request an executive session back in January. And then because that employee decides 4 or 5 months later to file a bogus, issue about right residency with the Board of Registrars, which is fine, and we can get into that next. At the end of the day, right, that should have no bearing on this executive session. I personally have no grudges against the building. That's his right. I've done nothing wrong. I have a ruling, and we'll talk about that in a minute. At the end of the day, okay, so that's the problem here, is that, just for the record, in the last executive session, we've had our chair recused himself from that decision. He did not do this here because of this relationship. Okay? And hear me out, because the problem I have with this whole process is that when we asked for an executive session, there were all kinds of meetings going within the first week at the town hall between you and Mr. Cantel, which is totally inappropriate. At the end of the day,
Wow.
I feel that this should have been handled sooner than later, but that last email, and the only email we ever received, was that we're waiting for a date and a time that Mr. Cantel and his attorney could be here. And that's what I've been asking the last 2 emails. That's all in the last couple of months. And again, there's nothing here about executive session. It just says to speak to the building inspector, the zoning officer, Mr. Soto, and that's not...
This was actually Mr. Soto's second letter.
Yeah,
Right, I know.
Let me do this for a second, hold on, okay, because this is really going off the rails at this point, okay? Most important point here is this board did not vote to bring you in here to have a discussion with you, okay? Mr. Soto did. In deference to his request to have you come in so that he could ask you about these issues, we put this on the agenda. Any information that should have been distributed to other members of this board would not have come from the Board of Selectmen. It would have come from Mr. Soto. And from the first day that Mr. Soto, Mr. Adams, and others have come onto this board, I've told them the exact same thing. If you want something on the agenda, I'll be happy to put it on for you. But I'm not just putting it on without having all of the relative information in hand, because it's not fair to the other board members to come in here and hear about all of this stuff for the first time at one of these meetings, okay? So the responsibility of handing out that kind of information was not from the board that did not vote to bring you in here, but rather from a member who wrote. So the proper procedure would be to say, all right, I would like to have a session, one way or the other, executive session, open, whatever it is that you decide you want to do, which is another reason that I don't agree with your take on the executive session, because it's not a board decision. It was one member's decision for something they wanted to do. I try to give all members of this board, if they have an issue, if they have something they want to address, the right to come in and do that. I only ask that they give the proper and the complete information on the subject to all the other members so that we're ready to go. This did not happen. It didn't belong, it wasn't the responsibility of me, or Paul, or Crystal, or Chris, or anybody else, okay? It was the responsibility of the person who said, I want this on the agenda, okay? He has now left the room. He was the one that had asked for this. So at this stage of the game, there's nothing left to do. So I am moving on from this issue. It's been addressed enough. He has requested that it goes on for the next 2 weeks if the board wants to do that. I don't normally require or need a vote of somebody else to, set the agenda, but in fairness and because of the passion of this situation, I'm going to give the courtesy to my fellow members of this board and ask them if they would like to put it on in 2 weeks when we meet next. Any thoughts on it? It doesn't have to be a motion because the decision is mine to put it on, so.
I got a question for Bill. Are you okay with that, Bill? Because I think this needs to be addressed.
I agree.
Because
I'm here ready to address it.
everybody in town's talking about
Right.
this.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's not fair, so I want to get through it so I know with the town residents that they can now build a building with no permits.
Yeah.
I can't wait to do it, and then we won't need you.
I agree.
And I don't disagree with that,
I'm not
okay?
too sure the state would agree with that.
No,
No, I
and I
agree.
don't disagree with what he's saying, okay? We can't do it now because the person who was asked to talk to you has left, okay? So there's nothing for us to talk to you about. If this board wants to, the next opportunity to do that, and I agree that it has to be addressed,
Has to be
okay, but it
addressed.
can't be addressed now.
No, I understand
So
that.
it
I
has
just
to be-
wanted,
yeah, no, and it was an
Bill's
excellent.
available in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But and honestly, Mr. Soto wasn't gonna speak about this in 2 weeks either, because I think it would be, wouldn't behoove him.
Okay, well, you know what? Let's do this. We don't need to make a decision right now. I'll make that decision when I set the agenda for the next meeting. And if, I can't deliberate this with other members of the board, so if somebody has something they'd like to say about it, they can send an email to the general mailbox. I will consider all thoughts and ideas on it before I set the agenda. Is that fair with everybody?
Fair enough.
Yep.
I'm kind of confused here. So the person that is called from the executive session cannot attend the executive session. So who will be in charge of the complaints that are in that executive
That's
session?
why we're not committing to putting it on the next meeting.
So, I mean, to me, this is a waste of time. And to put it down with 2 more weeks is another 2 more weeks of waste of time. So I don't understand the process here.
My suggestion to you would be very simple. This didn't occur.
Yeah.
So you just go forward and do your job, the way you do your job, and it's not your concern.
But Anthony said when he left, he can't be here to talk about it without his attorney.
Then why would he call an executive session that he can't attend?
He needs his attorney here. And if he didn't know that's what this is.
I'm not sure his attorney can speak for him, Ken.
He has an attorney. All I know is he left, he says, I can't discuss stuff here without my attorney. So that's what he's saying, so, my understanding. So that, in an executive session, that's because this case involves him. That's all he said, that's all I know, we don't talk about it, so.
And
Would it be fair to, if Mr. Cantel had anything that he wanted to say on this matter? But, I mean, he came in.
absolutely,
I think he
I would
should, do
be
you have
more than
anything you want
happy
to say on
to.
Well,
this?
I have plenty to say. It would take hours to discuss it all.
Yeah.
It's been going on for 2 years or
And-
more.
and I would
He's got
also-
3 different properties he's in violation of, all right? So to keep it all together is very difficult. I have it all spread, if you guys would like, I can give you a copy. I think I
And
already
that's, I
provided.
think it's important in fairness, because there's 2 sides to every story. So that's why if we can, let's shoot like you suggested, make it fair, we send our request, or any board member, to the next meeting. If Anthony wants to send in a request and have his counsel here, and then discuss all of what those issues are. Because there's been a lot of resolutions, a lot of stuff, in my understanding.
There's no-
All right, here's what we're
And
gonna
it's,
do.
again, it's not fair to discuss
There's no
it.
resolution.
You know what, we
Where did that
can-
come? Where do you come up with that?
It's not fair to talk about this issue without the other party.
Okay.
All right,
That's what I'm
let's do
thinking.
this, okay,
But
look.
he can't be here.
I just said we can't.
All right,
with his
listen, we can go
attorney.
back and forth all
Yeah,
night long
that's
about
right.
this, okay? And we have too much stuff to do tonight. So here's what I'm gonna suggest. Why doesn't the board take a vote that we would like to speak to Mr. Cantel about issues, and then when he comes in 2 weeks, he can get up and he can make every single point he wants to make. We can make any kind of, ask whatever questions, suggestions, whatever that we have here. And that way it's not just dependent on him.
Not dependent, I'm sorry, not dependent on.
If it's only dependent on Mr.
Soto's
Soto.
request.
Yeah,
Right.
if it's only dependent on him,
So this.
then this will never happen because, you know.
Can I make one request?
Yeah.
That I have some kind of detail of what this complaint is about, because I've been given nothing. All I've been saying is
Yes,
it's
you may.
unprofessional.
Fair enough.
That's it. So I want complete details so that I can get care.
Yes.
My assumption was it had to do with his personal business. I don't know if that's true or not, because I have not been given any.
I understand completely. And that's a valid request, and I will see that happens.
And to go farther, if he or anybody in this board has any written complaints on my actions, I would like them present at that meeting, please.
So here's what we'll do. Actually, before I do that, I'm gonna make one other comment, because I'm gonna respond to this allegation that I somehow had inappropriate meetings with you about this. Mr. Cantel is an employee of the town of Brimfield. This is the executive board. I am the chair of that board, which means that the day-to-day operations are overseen by me. When he was notified of this, he came and was looking at all kinds of things to do with zoning, to do with, you know, his position, everything, okay? I have a duty and a responsibility, as I would for anybody who works for this town, to give them whatever information and help that they need. The alternative would be to say what? He comes and asks for information and help and questions and so forth, and I say, no, you're on your own, go get it yourself. Then what have we done? Now we've said, okay, the board is closing ranks and supporting something that I think is unfair. So to suggest that because I spent a lot of time going over some of this paperwork with you, that something inappropriate happened, I'd like to think that I'm smarter than to do it in my own office in the middle of the day when everybody else is working in the building, okay? So that's where we are. End of that, we're not taking questions from the
I'll
board.
admit, I asked him for what paperwork he had, so I did the same thing you did. That's what I.
If somebody comes and says, look, this is happening, and I've been requested to do this, I don't have this information, I don't know how this works, what do I need to know, what do I need to do, what does the zoning say, what's the bylaw say, and there were a lot of issues that had to be addressed, okay? That's the end of that discussion, okay? Point, counterpoint.
I will say one thing, our meetings were about zoning and the zoning.
Absolutely.
commission, and, it was
It was
all
all
zoning
relative to the
questions.
request to
It
bring you
didn't
in.
have anything to do with any individual
Yeah.
outside of my being appointed zoning official. That was it.
So in the event that anybody watching here works for this town and has a problem, feel free to come see me. I'll spend as much time as you need me to. All right, now, having said all of that, let's do this. If we want to take a vote to have him, Mr. Cantel, come back in 2 weeks at the next meeting, the entire board will be able to ask the questions about this, and we can go forward. But we will limit it to whatever Mr. Soto sends us as to all of the information that he wants, and not just make this a free-for-all. Because I'm not going to single out one employee for a performance review if we're not doing all the others. So that's the thing. This was a question from one member. If he's going to recuse himself, and this board wants to give Mr. Cantel an opportunity to ask questions and make his points, and you know what? I'm going to just say this. Is the board in agreement that they want to have him come back in 2 weeks and we can give him an opportunity to speak for himself?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Then we don't need a vote. I'll see to it that that's on the agenda. Watch this. Oh, Chris. Thank you very much. I apologize for, good job on the documentation, however. Okay. All right. You want to talk about shoulder?
He left.
He left one?
He made it.
What?
He just told me he can come back.
He's coming back, we said.
I told me he can come back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm not sure you paid attention.
All right. All right, you know what, I'm not gonna, there are things that we, oh, here he is, okay. I didn't know if you really know. Okay, next up on the agenda, I put this item on because I won't speak for other members, just speak for myself. I have been inundated with questions from people about, and this is no shock to Mr. Adams, he's sitting here, he's seen it, okay? About his qualifications to be on the board, in the belief that he has moved his residence out of state, and that it's thought by an awful lot of people in town that that could be a disqualifier. So I'm giving Mr. Adams an opportunity to address that because he was the subject of the question. Mr. Adams, you have the floor.
So, in a nutshell, and it's been no secrets, I mean, yes, my wife is the minister in Wolfboro, New Hampshire, and that's public knowledge. Back in May, there is, but however, I am still a legal resident in Brimfield, Mass. My residency hasn't changed. As I said earlier, Mr. Cantel felt that because there's a newspaper article that was in May with a picture of myself and my wife in front of the church about my wife's, calling, that that we're looking for residency up there, and which we are, because at the end of the day, my wife needs a place to live. Okay? So but that doesn't mean my residency is there. My residency is here in Brimfield. It's clear as day. Bill Cantel decided to notify the Board of Registrars. They had a meeting on Thursday. In that meeting, I sent a letter basically stating what I just told you, about the location in New Hampshire, my wife, which has nothing to do about my position here as selectman, right? And basically, I continue to be active in Brimfield as a requirement, as residency, right? I pay my registrations, my vehicle taxes are here, my 3 trailers are here, I'm a registered voter here, I do banking here, I'm on the Troop Scout Committee, for Troop 7 in town. I am involved with the Cub Scouts in town. This Saturday, I'm organizing a townwide cleanup. I don't know what more I need to do to prove that I'm resident. As a matter of fact, I don't need to prove that I'm resident. It's really simple. My driver's license is Brimfield, Massachusetts, and I'm a registered voter in Brimfield, Massachusetts. Basically where and how I live or spend my personal time has no bearing on what I do here as a selectman. That's my personal business, not yours. Okay? And then, so my point is, and I've done an awful lot for this town in my 3 years as select board. And just last week, I attended a Board of Health meeting, and I attended a historic commission meeting. Right? I continue to be active as a leader. Right? It doesn't matter, what you think. At the end of the day, legally, I'm a registered, voter and a resident here in town, and that's exactly what the Board of Registrars has ruled on Thursday. Okay, that basically, upon review of the residence for voting purposes revised in 2017 by the Massachusetts Secretary of State office, which is attached to this letter, it's submitted to this office from Mr. Adams dated April 3rd, 2025, also attached. The Board of Registrars determined that there's no need to move to a hearing has not been satisfied. Now, for anybody that wants to know, the residence for voting purposes is the exact document that's in this packet here, okay, which is attached to KP Law, with a case from Turl, Mass. In KP Law, this is from 23. In KP Law, basically, it's just regurgitating what is in this actual statement of residence for voting purposes, which was in our package last meeting. Okay? And it's very difficult, because the definition of residency in Massachusetts is very vague, and I think what Steve said earlier, it's dense. You really have to, what they really say in this document is that residency is unique to every individual. You can't just say one thing, that's it. Okay? And what I said at the last meeting is that the problem is that, as it was mentioned about, well, I don't pay property taxes. Well, my state and federal taxes is massive, is this residency, and my mass taxes that I file goes to Boston, and then those cherry sheets that we get, where that money comes back, is some of our tax money, okay? So, because I don't own property in this town, doesn't mean I don't have a right to sit as an elected official, okay? That was ruled years ago, right? That's how we would suppress people. So, from holding, powerful positions. I meet all the criteria and then some that's listed in this document.
I have one question.
Go.
The only one I have.
Can I ask a question?
No, sorry, I'm not taking it from the floor. If I sent you a Christmas card, where would I send it?
Brimfield.
Brimfield?
You send it to my street. You send it 49 Dix Hill Road.
Well, I think that's one of the things people ask about.
It's 49 Dix Hill Road.
I'm sitting here with the opportunity to ask you the question, so.
And I'll address this issue, and it was in the complaint. Right, my wife is the minister of the First Congregational Church. Part of her employment package was the parsonage. In her exiting interview, which is private information, it's not public, but I'll share it. In her exiting interview, okay, part of that interview was allowing me to stay in the parsonage, until I feel that I finished my term here, or until they got a new minister. That new minister hasn't happened yet. That's still my address. I live there, I maintain the property, and a story.
Okay, that was answered. Excuse me, just a second. I'm going to give you an opportunity to speak. I just want to let you know, I'm not just shutting you down. I have told others, gave them the no, you can't speak thing, so I didn't want to, okay? That's all. Go ahead.
Well, no, I would just say that, to one of George's points here, that he doesn't have to answer to anybody. We all got voted in by residents of Brimfield, so I hope that they get a chance to watch this, and they vote in who they want. That's all I'm
That's
saying.
absolutely.
I mean, I don't think that was a really good comment, but
Right, and I agree, I misspoke, and what I'm saying is that, I'm giving a lot of personal information that isn't required to hold this position, that's all I'm saying.
Okay. Okay, that has been sufficiently explained at this point, so again, we still have a lot to get through, so I apologize, but Mr. Soto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to say, the last 3 years that I've sat next to this gentleman here, George Adams, there is no one on this board, combined all four before us, that do more than this gentleman does. He has partaken every single thing that in this department, in this community. From cleaning this community to making sure that dollars are well spent, and he questions every single thing. That's how you sort of maybe make enemies. But this is such a waste of time to do this for our community, and especially with the agenda that we have to put George through this, or Stanley through this, and question. There's no one, I am telling you, I've been in politics and I've been elected for a long time. There's no one that I've known that works harder than this guy right here. He works hard for every single person in this town, every single one of us. I've seen him take money from his own pocket to get water tested for an individual who had doubts. He did conspiracy theories that his water was being poisoned. So that's the kind of guy this guy is, and I've witnessed it myself. So
I don't think anybody disagrees that George is hardworking, he loves his community. I think, like Mr. Kelly, I have received letters from.
can we see them letters? I'd like to see those letters. Yeah.
What?
Yes, bring those letters.
Oh, I will,
Okay.
sir.
Love to see
When
them.
you show me your letters.
Bring them letters.
I'm speaking.
Yes.
And you interrupted me. I wasn't finished, but thank you.
Point of order.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody, please be quiet. Mr. Soto, do you have anything else?
I'm all set, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Do you have anything else that you would like to say?
Yes, I do. And
Go ahead.
I think George is an amazing person in this community. But when people come and the residents ask questions, that we have to address that. I'm getting like, is it morally correct? Is it ethically correct? I'm not the judge of that. But we have to let the people know that we're thinking about this. I'm not going to judge George on where he goes or what he does on the weekend. That's not my job. My job is to work for the residents and have their concerns be heard.
And to add to that, just one small piece, we are duty bound when there are public questions of this magnitude to at least address it and say, hey, people are concerned with this, what's the story? He has addressed the story.
historic, right.
Thank you for your input. All right, I'm gonna move on to the next item.
Marty, can I speak on it, seeing as I've been called so many things about this?
Since you were what?
Since I've been brought up many times in this conversation, do I have a right to?
Actually, you were mentioned, so.
First of all, based on that article, I did kind of determine that George Adams does not reside in Brimfield anymore, as in the article it states that him and his wife were both looking for a residence in New Hampshire. That was over a year ago.
Correct.
Now, he may have decided to stay in this town with his wife living in New Hampshire, and that's all well and good, but that's not what the article stated. I didn't ask for this to come to the select board meeting. I put in my complaint to the registers. They filed that they have no reason to go further at this time, and my response will be to appeal that if I decide to. Other than that, I've not done anything.
Okay.
So,
All right, fair enough.
Fair enough.
You were brought up, I've given you an opportunity
Thank
to
you.
address that, so thank you for that input. Now, I'm moving on.
okay.
Okay.
Me too.
The next up, we have a public records request. This one is a little bit, different. The electrical
Yes, sir.
inspector, I hope that's not on.
Scott Mansfield.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Had requested a copy of a video of one of the meetings.
This video.
Yeah, and we don't have someone who runs the video camera and sends these meetings out live. We've been advertising forever to fill this job. We've changed the description as much as we could possibly do. We can't make people come in and do that. However, in the absence of them doing that, Mr. Adams has been taping these meetings, not uploading them, as I understood. He's not quite sure how to do that, right?
Working on it.
Okay. So that makes him the custodian of that record because, you know, the town's not recording it, he is. Town equipment should be part of the response. So my concern is, we also received another public records request having to do with multiple meeting tapes, okay? And as far as I can tell at this point, we have no way of complying with that unless they're handed over. And if a complaint goes to the state, we are bound by law to give this information. So we need to decide how it is we're going to satisfy these public requests. And before I open it to a discussion here, Mr. Mansfield is here, so I'm going to let you speak to that if you like. You don't feel like you have to.
Yeah, so there was an outrage at the last meeting I was at, and very rude one of the board members, and it didn't like it. I'm not going to mention any names, don't care, but it's on video. And at that time, I asked if the video is being used, and I was told by everybody, yes, it is. As I see it's being used today, so this meeting's being. So when I asked for my public records request, I asked for two things. I wanted a meeting of the minutes, meeting minutes, so that I could see if they put on the minutes what the verbal attack was, and they weren't on the minutes, which I'm going to file a complaint and get that amended. So what was said was not put on the minutes. One. Number two, I got my minutes, but I didn't get the second one. I didn't get the camera footage. So I sent a nice letter back to the board, and I said, thank you for number one. I don't have the number two yet. So before I have to go to the district attorney's office and get it through them, have them come down to your office, because they'll figure out how to get the camera off there, I'm asking again for the request. That time, a couple days later, I got a message back from the person that holds the camera that, sorry, I don't know how to do that. I can't get it yet. Okay, so why are we recording if we don't know how to run the equipment? First of all, you might as well shut it off and put it in your car and then get away from the problem. But it's not. So they obviously know it's working. They know how to use it because it's here again today. Even after getting a letter saying I don't know how to use it. So how do we answer that? I do not want to go to the district attorney's office, but that is my next step.
Okay, let me address that if I may.
Yes, sir.
Okay. One, if we don't have a way to copy them, if we don't have a, but I've got to believe that we can get these things copied.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay? And I think that any request for anything that's been videoed here should be handed over too sweet, as they say.
Yes.
And I don't offer this next piece of information as an excuse or reason or anything else, but only a additional option you have available, okay? And that is, we also have audio recordings. So, you can also request that if you find that helpful. Now, I understand audio's a little bit more difficult if you have a problem